Everyone, and welcome to Vespa Now, our Q2 product update. My name is Bonnie, and I lead product marketing at Vespa. And today I'm joined by Andreas, a principal search engineer, and Radu, our software engineer and developer relations. Today, we're excited to walk you through some of the most impactful improvements we've made across the platform over the last quarter. And as you know, at Vespa, our focus is helping organizations build better search, recommendations, retrieval, and AI applications at scale. This webinar is being recorded, and you will get a copy of the recording within 48 hours at the end of the session. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So here's what we'll cover today. We'll start with some Vespa Cloud updates. Then we'll look at improvements to search and query processing. We'll cover some data model enhancements that give you more flexibility and efficiency when representing complex application data. Then after that, we'll dive into ranking and scoring improvements. Finally, we'll close with some updates focused on developer productivity, including new agent skills, learning resources, and improvements that make Vespa easier to work with. And as always, we will save some time at the end for your questions. So be sure to go into the Q&A portion at the bottom of the webinar and add your questions in there, and we will address those live at the end. Now, with that, I will pass it over to Andreas to cover the Vespa Cloud updates. Andreas.
Right. So the main improvements we made to Vespa Cloud in Q2 is, first of all, the detailed metrics dashboards. We're going to have a separate slide on that and talk about that in a little bit. We have the index backup, which means that, we've always had backup, but now it's more convenient. And you are able to restore faster from backup with the help of our team. So you can now turn on automatic scheduled backups and be able to have secure knowledge that if something happens, whether it's a hardware event or it's an engineering mistake, which does happen, so you can quickly recover to your pre-incident state. And fine-grained maintenance controls is something we've always had, but it's becoming more important. We see that there's a lot of security upgrades going on, a lot of CVEs coming in, and even though we review those carefully and ensure that, most of the time there's no real impact because the parts of the dependencies we're using or the ways in which you're using them aren't really affected. But that's not really something we can just say and be done with it. We need to have a green dashboard to keep all the latest versions up to date so everyone can see that there aren't any security vulnerabilities. And now you can control when those happen. And by being able to control when those happen, you have better control of the scaling of your system because you're not having nodes down for upgrade. So it lets you decide when it happens and how often. But of course, you can't just turn it off. We need some upgrades, so you need at least a few hours per week, but now you are in control of when. AI embedding integrations. I think, Radu, you're going to be talking about that in a little bit.
Yep.
And then customer source tags, that's something we've seen a lot of a customer ask for. A lot of our customers, they want to run their workloads inside their own accounts. And with Vespa Cloud, you can do that, and you will have more control of your data in that your data never leaves your machines or your account that you are in control of. But a lot of them have also requirements for custom resource tagging for security uses or for finance control usage. And now you're able to set the tags that will be automatically created in all Vespa resources, which means that they will show up correctly in all your reporting tools. So frequently requested feature that's now in place.
That's great. Now, out of these 5 improvements, which one do you think would have the biggest impact for teams that are already running on Vespa Cloud?
That's easy because a lot of teams have already said how happy they are with the detailed metrics dashboards. And we have a separate blog post on that, and it's one of the features that have been coming for a long time. We've been working with Grafana Cloud to make it happen. And now we are sharing all the tools that we've been using and building up confidence in over years with all our customers as well.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into more details on that then.
Exactly. So this is an example of the main overview dashboard. And we tried to go beyond just giving more details here, because what's really important when something happens is that you can quickly understand what's going on. And this is the summary dashboard, which was always there. And it gives like the high level overview of your system with the goal of quickly letting you understand what might be the issue in case there's an issue. In this case, everything's green and everything looks good, but it should be very obvious where you need to look and where you need to drill down if something is not. And that can happen for many reasons. Like you can run out of capacity. There might be a network issue. You might having a large increase in traffic to your application. And the goal here is that all of this should be easily visible and let you drill down into the issues that might be affecting your application. But of course, it's not only useful in a crisis. Having these detailed insights into your application, it lets you really understand what's going on. And that's also something that lets you go through and optimize for latency, throughput, cost, and reliability. So I encourage all teams running on Vespa Cloud to go and browse through these dashboards so that you're familiar with them before you need to be. And it might just give you some insights that lets you reduce latency, save cost, or understand better what is actually going on in your system.
Yeah, I mean, having this visibility is really important for optimizing for that performance and costs and everything. And we have given Vespa Cloud customers a level of visibility. What would you say is the biggest difference between what we had in the metrics dashboard versus what we have now?
Well, now it really is an open box. I think it's very good also in the cases that the Vespa team needs to be involved to help you, that we're looking at the same thing and using the same tools. And that makes it easier for us to communicate and help our customers quickly.
Absolutely. Great. Well, let's go into the other topic that's part of Vespa Cloud, which is the AI embedding integration. So, Radu, why don't you walk us through these?
Yeah, so the Voyage AI integration has been out there for a while now. We presented it in the last webinar. The idea is you can use your Voyage AI account to create embeddings from Vespa. So you send documents to Vespa, and then Vespa will take care of doing the embeddings for you. And embeddings can be asymmetric, so you can use a cheaper model embedded in Vespa for queries for good latency, and you can use a more expensive API-based model to create good embeddings for your documents. And now we have OpenAI and Mistral AI integrations as well in similar ways. So whether you use those actual services or you have something with API compatibility with those, you can use them with Vespa. And I think that makes things easier for a lot of deployments.
Yeah, and I think a very large amount of services do have OpenAI compatibility, right?
Yep. Even local model can be deployed with that.
Yeah, and I love that we're kind of expanding these integrations because one of the things that we do at Vespa is we enable you to use, the models that you want to use. I think it's interesting about Mistral. It's a French company, which feels significant right now. I know there's a growing conversation among European companies about reducing dependencies on non-European providers, AI providers. Are you seeing that play out in practice?
Yeah, we've seen that, and we've seen this in general, like all over the world, like people wanting to make sure they're not dependent on specific providers. They just want to be more in control of their data and models.
Absolutely. Now, the OpenAI integration, I know OpenAI is still the default choice for a lot of teams. Is this native integration about making it easier for customers who are already using it, or are you seeing people choose it fresh when building on Vespa?
I think it's both, because a lot of things out there can expose an OpenAI compatible API. So then, whether you're a customer of OpenAI or not, you might find this useful.
Yeah. All right, let's dig into search and query operators.
Right. So we have a lot of miscellaneous things to talk about, I think, here. They're not necessarily related to each other. But first of all, sample apps. We have this huge repository of sample apps. There are lots of examples there about how to do lots of things with Vespa, and we keep adding and improving them. We have 3 that are new in this quarter that I think are worth talking about. One is Bayesian BM25. This is a relatively new technique of normalizing BM25 scores, and not only BM25 scores, but BM25 is a good example of a score that is not bounded in a specific range, and combining BM25 scores with others that are bound to a range, like cosine similarity, might lead to unexpected results. So this technique shows how to use to convert the BM25 score into a probability range, and that is bounded, and you can combine that with other factors in hybrid search and get good results. So this is an example of how you can do this. Another app is about hyperencoders. Andreas actually built it. So this is another relatively new technique where the idea is to effectively have a small neural network that is specific to a query and run your documents against it. And then we've been supporting Lucene linguistics for a long time now, but we have very interesting use cases for them, as people coming from the Lucene world will know. You can do lots of things, and you may want lots of things. And one of the more frequent use cases was dealing with Chinese, Korean, those kinds of languages, where frankly, I don't know any of them. But these are interesting because a lot of the things that apply for European languages, such as delimiting by white space, don't apply. So we have a really thorough example here on how to deal with some of them, with different trade-offs between precision, recall, and whether the analyzer is specific to one language or will work across multiple of those languages, whether you need custom code to deploy it or it's just a configuration change. So pick your poison or your feature, and there are like about 8 options, if I remember correctly, over there. Moving on to cluster size independent configuration. This has been a pain point for many users, that you would have a lot of options, such as the target hits to get during vector search. How many candidates do we want to get? these options have historically been per node. And you may want different values on 100 nodes than you want on 10 nodes. So that's why we introduced these new configuration options, which will allow you to have a cluster-wide, in this case, target hits that would be divided between nodes according to the number of documents that these nodes are serving. Last but not least, ranking based on how close tokens are to each other. So we have these operators like near or near, which allow you to query for documents having tokens that are within a distance of each other. The problem is before we would also consider those terms for ranking even if they were outside the window you were looking at. So now this is a lot more precise and still performs well, I would say.
Awesome. Lots of good stuff here. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. So, Andreas, why don't you talk us through the data model improvements?
Sure, yeah. We've been making some additional data types available. Or I guess we've always had the Boolean type, but now you can have an array of Booleans, which means you can pack a lot of information very densely. This has been useful in cases like where you have you're searching products and each product is in stock in a lot of different warehouses, maybe with different delivery options. And this allows you to then very efficiently pack that information into your search so that your search can consider when your customer is searching whether the product is in stock in your local store, in the next store, or if it's ready for expedited shipping to your location. So by having this as a binary field instead of having to use a number for each one, it's just much more densely packed, and that allows you to store all of this information with much less memory used. And then the next part about matching specific array elements, it sort of goes hand in hand with this. You can also filter now on specific elements of an array. So you can have a filter that says, is this ready for next day shipping within your region, or is it present in your closest store? And that's just one example. It can be used for many things, but that's the example I have. And then finally, the document IDs that you put into Vespa. So each document is sent with an ID. Sometimes you want results very quickly. And if you want the fastest results, you can fetch only the fields that are in memory. This is really useful for a lot of use cases where you can have really low latency. You don't have to go touch a disk. But because the document IDs can be very long, sometimes because of requirements for unique identifiers that might contain long strings, we don't have them in memory by default. So that means in some of these cases you get Vespa internal ID back out. And that can be a little confusing. Sometimes you do need to correlate the documents returned in search with the exact ID that you have in your system. And so the guidance until now has been to set up a separate in-memory field for that ID. But now it's easier. You can just turn it on. And by turning on this new schema option, you can now always ensure that the full document identifier is returned in search. It just makes things a little easier and more consistent in those cases.
Awesome. Let's move on to ranking and scoring improvements.
Right, so there's another set of improvements. The first is also about consistency, which is search group pinning. So Vespa has the ability to run multiple groups in your system, which means that you can scale really efficiently to a high number of queries per second. Basically, you can take a copy of your entire content cluster And you can have as many of those as you like and easily scale up to more. And that allows you to handle a very large amount of queries in a very predictable way with predictable latency. But the problem is that when you're sending queries to random groups, there might be slight differences. In most cases, you won't notice, but there are going to be tiny differences in like the term frequencies or the use of probabilistic algorithms for nearest neighbor search. That means that maybe if you're paginating to the same page and back, you might notice inconsistencies, things moving around, shifting a little bit. And this is a way to avoid that. So by ensuring that all the requests from a single user goes to a specific group, as long as that group is available, you're basically going to have as close to perfectly consistent results as possible between different queries. And that means, you're just going to have a much more consistent experience for your customers without having to do all the work to ensure that your scoring is perfectly deterministic, which is also possible on Vespa, but that's also comes with some performance trade-offs. So this is the best option for most use cases. And the first phase max rank feature, this will allow you to get in your scoring phases, you get some idea of the range of scores. So you can say, if this is the best score, then you know that something that scores well below that is likely unrelated and can be dropped. And now, because you can know this in the first phase, you can drop things very early. And that's going to mean that you're going to do less work. So that has a positive impact on latency if you're dropping unrelated hits early. And it also has a positive impact on the cost of running a lot of queries. You can get more throughput if you're not spending the work to rank and further analyze these hits that are scoring much worse than your best. And then the last use case is grouping by geographical distance, which is a nice feature. So if you know where the user is in the world, and you might want to know how many options you can provide within 1 mile, 3 miles, 5 miles, or more. But especially in very dense regions, like imagine New York, the numbers can be very large, and you don't want to actually return everything within 5 miles just to count the number. So this allows you to do that. Inside the backend of Vespa, you can get the numbers back for how many matches you have within a certain geographical distance. And that makes the nice user experience at a much lower cost than you had before.
Yeah, no, geodistance and grouping feels like a big deal for like retail and local search. Are there use cases where you've seen customers already excited to build with this?
Yes, this was actually requested by one of our customers and is now in production. So definitely. And, that's how we build a lot of our features.
It's great to hear. Okay, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next section. So Radu, let's talk about agents and developer experience and other cool things we've got going on.
Yeah, this is something we've been recommending to people left and right to use the Vespa Skills. We've built those skills and they can do lots of things. Most importantly, I think just helping you develop a Vespa application much faster than the agent would normally be able to do and more cost effective. So yeah, those are skills in a nutshell, and they're part of this GitHub organization, Vespa Playground, where we have a lot of cool projects. Another one unrelated to this is a document v1 API update, where we can now detect ignored write operation. What does that mean? It means that, for example, you may have a TTL set up to remove documents older than a year. And if a document comes back that is from 5 years ago, it would be silently dropped because it would have been evicted anyway, and you wouldn't know it. And so now this would actually let you know that this was ignored, and so you don't look for the document and why is it not there, kind of thing. Another thing that I'm personally very excited about is Vespa Learn. I think we've touched on it in the last webinar as well. This is, I would call it a alternative for the documentation, which a lot of people have complained about. This is more like a book. So if you want to get started with Vespa, or even if you're reasonably dangerous with Vespa and want to learn more, want to look at a specific set of features, and want to do maybe a lab that is appropriate for you to, it's like a self-paced training in a way as well, then we highly recommend this new site. And because I think it's just where the documentation is made to be referencey, so you have kind of all the options there and why they're there and stuff like that. This is much more focused on the flow and how people learn.
So it's
I would highly recommend that.
And skills for humans.
Pretty much, yes.
I love that. Yeah. So if anyone's, maybe gotten started with Vespa in the past, maybe struggled before, I would highly recommend Vespa Learn to kind of jump back into that. So Radu, a question about Vespa Skills for agents. So this is now on GitHub. What's the vision here? Are we expecting developers to contribute back, or is this more of a curated library that we'll maintain?
We hope that people will contribute. That's why I made it open source. We'll maintain it. So yeah, we won't just merge any kind of contribution, but anything that would be useful for that people use, yeah, sure. Feel free to open a PR.
Awesome. Now, the next slide I'm particularly excited about. So Radu, why don't you share more about Vespa Live?
Yeah, I'm also a little bit excited about this. So Vespa Live, for those of you who don't know, is our first in-person conference focused on Vespa and information retrieval in general. It will take place in London, beginning of September. And now we have the agenda published. We have super interesting talks and super interesting people giving those talks. And I like not only the topics, but also the format of it. We're going to have a bar camp, which is going to be more sort of free-formed. We're going to have some events around it. The trainings that are here on the slide, but also there will be meetups and dinners and just a place for people to get together and learn about search and AI. So I'm really excited about this. And there's a QR code here for people who want a bit of a discount. It is affordable to begin with, but if you need an extra incentive, now's a good time while the early birds are still flying.
Yeah, this is going to be a cool event. I know we're going to have, as you mentioned, speakers from various companies, also have some, familiar people in the search space like Charlie Hull, Trey Granger, Doug Turnbull, Vespa customers all attending. And even if you're not a Vespa customer, this will still be an informative conference where you can connect with other search experts.
I think that's something important to add here, that it's not, we were very careful to not just make this Vespa is awesome kind of an event, but we invited people from, the search world at large, and just to be an informative conference where people learn about information retrieval and Vespa in particular, but it's not like you need to be a Vespa customer or user in order to find this useful.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that wraps up the main topics for today's session. So as a wrap up, I'll just highlight a few themes that kind of connect all of these updates. The first thing with Vespa Cloud, we're continuing to invest heavily in making Vespa easier to operate in production. So that includes those new dashboards, backup capabilities, maintenance controls, resource tagging. So really wanting to give users greater visibility and control over their deployments. The second is we're always continuing to improve relevance and retrieval quality. So features like near matching aware ranking, search group pinning, and new ranking controls that will really help deliver more accurate and consistent results. And then, of course, expanding what's possible with the platform itself. So those new data model capabilities, embedding integrations, and ranking features so that you can build more sophisticated applications without adding additional systems. And then, of course, we're making Vespa more accessible to developers through our improved tooling, learning resources, and support for AI assisted development workflows. So, taken together, these updates continue to support our vision of providing a single platform for search, recommendations, retrieval, and AI applications so that you can move faster while maintaining the performance, the scale, and the control required in production. So, with that, I want to thank you for joining us. We will open it up for questions now. So if you haven't had a chance to drop in your question to the Q&A, now is the time. And I will go ahead and get started with the first question. Right. So the first question is, can you talk a little bit more about the Vespa Skills project? Who is it intended for, and how are customers using it? So, Radu, I think maybe you can take that one.
Sure. The idea is if you're using Claude and friends to develop things like Vespa applications, then this will be helpful. And that's how people use it.
I'm using it.
Yeah, I'm
A lot
using
of
it too.
time to do all kinds of demos and so on, and it just speeds up the process a little bit. Gives the agent some hints of where to go and where to look at the documentation in an efficient way, token efficient way, and so on. It's
Great.
quite useful.
Okay, we have another question. Any big plans for the layered ranking technique improvements?
Big plans. I think we do hope to make it more advanced over time and also gather some feedback from our various customers using it to see if we can identify patterns further, finding it the most useful and making those available to everyone. And yeah, adding more features because currently you can get the BM25 score of each chunk within your document. And there are also other features that work with this approach of having an array of strings, like the near operator, which we added support for. Eventually, we'll also want more rank features available, so you can use the full set of features also in this chunk-was way, like proximity and so on. But we don't want to go and implement every single one of them again. So we'll need to be smart about it and make sure that it's done in a way where you can reuse the existing work.
Okay. Another question. How does search group pinning affect user-facing experiences like infinite scroll or pagination? Not sure who wants to take that
Yeah,
one.
that's basically the use case for it. It just ensures that those stay consistent. So as you're doing infinite scroll or pagination, uh, there's no chance that you're going to see the same result you saw on page one on page two. You won't have repetition in your infinite scroll because the same elements are ranked differently on different nodes. Like those uh, can be a little confusing to the user and seems something is broken. And in a way, it is. So it's always good to be more consistent when you can with no cost, and with search group pinning, you can do it at practically no cost.
Okay. Another question. If we're already using OpenAI embeddings today, what's the advantage of using the native integration instead of generating embeddings outside of Vespa?
I think it's just ease of use, that you just send the documents themselves and the query themselves, and then Vespa calls the API instead of having external plumbing. I don't think there's a, let's say, performance reason. I think it's more of an architecture choice.
Okay. Looks like we have one more question. Can the new dashboards help us identify ranking and retrieval bottlenecks, or are they primarily infrastructure metrics?
Yes, or yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rudy.
No, you go. Okay. Yeah, they're not only infrastructure, they're also down to things that are specific to Vespa, like match thread pools and stuff like that. So if you have performance issues, let's say regarding your queries, you can maybe see some traces like smoking guns in those metrics and help you identify what the offending queries would be. You still need to look in the traces and logs and all those things.
Yeah, and you can also look at things like how many results are getting 0 hits, these kinds of things. There's a lot of details about the nearest neighbor search, which works great out of the box, but you can do a lot of tuning on it to make it even faster and more efficient for your use case. And there's a special dashboard just for that as well. So it's a lot you can do.
Okay. Another question. Are there future plans for Vespa Live at other locations?
Yes, we're planning to do this in the US sometime next year. Dates will be announced and everything, but yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. And we will, yeah, as you said, Radu, we'll announce as we get closer. We'll open a call for papers. So if you submitted this time around and didn't have a talk in London, you'll have the opportunity to do that again. So keep an eye out for that at the beginning of the year. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. I want to thank you, Andreas and Radu, for joining me and everyone who attended, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. See you.
Thank you, Bonnie.